Welcome to Across the Fence. I'm Jamie Cope for the Department of Travel and Tourism. This year, the entire nation is celebrating the Year of the American Craft. May the 29th and 30th, Memorial Day weekend, 114 studios are going to be open to the public. Today we're going to be visiting craftspeople in their studios from Marlborough to Shelburne. Kaur Khalsa is a potter of hawk wing pottery, and her husband, Singh, is a custom furniture designer. They live and work in Marlborough.
These are flying fish that I'm painting on this pot. And now I'm using a European technique called sgraffito, which is a drawing through layers of colored clay. Sgraffito just means scratching, really. And the way I became intrigued with this technique of decorating pottery ware was in kindergarten, when the teacher told us to do lots of colors with crayon and then cover them all up, and then, like finding a treasure, we would do a drawing on top of that black. We would take something and scratch through, and then it would reveal the colors again. And ever since kindergarten, I've been obsessed with this, so that when in studying ceramics I learned that this could be done on clay, I was totally happy. Now after that, there are several layers here. There are maybe 3 or 4 layers of colored slip or clay, and then there are a couple different colors of glazes in 2 layers, and then I put more decorating slip on top, and here's where I've sgraffitoed out a design, and when it's finished and glazed and fired with glass, it looks like this. I've always been a painter. I think as soon as I could go outside and look around, I started recording and painting the things that I saw. And pictures would be hung on the refrigerator and so forth. And then I just always painted. So all this imagery was in my head. I had lots of imagery in my head. And I became very interested in art history, and I still am. I spend a lot of time haunting museums all over the country, looking for images, really ancient images. So that when it came to making a living, I decided to paint on pots. A lot of the pots that I've been doing lately have dream imagery. There was a kind of progression from doing deer and then fish and sea imagery. And after the fish and the sea imagery, I started to do people floating in a sort of space with fish and deer and all the other things that I painted on the pots. Suddenly these people were coming into the picture. So really it's been a process over the past 10 or 11 years of an unfolding of things that really come from inside.
Something about being in a rural area and producing craft that go together. Vermont has a good reputation for crafts. It's a positive place to be, being in the country, being closer to nature. Helps you to be a little bit more in tune with yourself, or at least it helps me. And being in tune with myself helps me to be in tune with my work. Being a craftsperson is in a way a very, at least a craftsperson on the level that I am, is a very meditative situation, because you often are working by yourself, many hours in your shop. And you have a lot of time to think about a lot of things, and your work in a lot of ways is a reflection of yourself, I guess that's maybe self-evident. But in producing a piece of furniture, I learn a lot about how I think, how I feel, how I relate to other situations in my life. A lot of people have talked about craft as a teacher, what you do, how you develop your craft, how it speaks to you and how you hear it. This particular coffee table here is walnut on the legs, and the other wood is maple, and specifically spalted maple, which is a maple that has been dead on the stump usually, and when the maple dies, it releases a chemical substance into its cell structure that creates this incredible, almost pen and ink pattern on the top. Now, this particular piece came out of two large maples that were on the edge of my field that I was actually using for firewood. And I cut the tree down, and when I saw on the stump this incredible, amazing pattern, I knew that I had some spalted maple on my hands. And here's a piece over here of that same tree, and this is what it looks like in the rough. We cut it out with a chainsaw, and you can still see the waney edge of the board.
Marcia Hammond is a weaver of beautiful clothes. Her studio is located in Putney.
Weaving comes to me through my family, and that both my mother and my grandmother were dressmakers. They handled fabric their whole lives, and I learned to handle fabric, and then I wanted to know more about what that was, really. I mean, something so simple as that. For 26 years now I've been a weaver, and many times throughout those years I've thought, I won't be able to continue to do this work because people will not value it. It will lose its viability as something for me to make a living off of. I would continue to do it anyway for my own love, but as a way of supporting myself financially, I've thought, this is going to end. And amazingly, time and time again, it has not ended. It has surged forth more fully. I was speaking with some other craftspeople, and they said, boy, I'm afraid that we're going to lose crafts as a part of our world because they're going to die out. And my response is, I have trained so many apprentices and worked with so many young weavers. I don't have that experience. There's so many new and budding weavers that I know, that I have personally been in touch with and worked with, that I don't feel like things are dying out here. I feel like it's a very vibrant activity, but I know some other craftspeople have worried about that. And I think there is truly a resurgence and a valuing of this old way, this very old way. The importance of doing this, and why I signed up and agreed to participate in this Open Studio Weekend, is it really enables people to see how these things are made, where they come from. And that's my willingness to share my process and my dailiness with the general public. I would like them to know about this.
Robert Burch's glassblowing studio is also in Putney. His Brandywine Glass Works is in a converted barn where he creates perfume bottles, sculpture pieces, and other custom designs.
I'm mainly self-taught, and still learning every day that I walk out into that shop. It's very enlightening, because you think that you reach a point where you know a lot, and the more you learn, the less you know. The basic process that I go through is to case layers of glass by gathering it out of the clear tank and taking it back to the bench and shaping it with wooden and metal tools. The glass is at about 2,400 degrees when I come out of the tank, and is constantly reheated to maintain that heat. The colors come from metallic oxides that are added to the glass. Then I'll do oxidation and reduction on each layer to develop different colors. Each piece has its own personality and is unique to itself, and it has its own problems. It's very exciting just to look at a very simple line, the way the color interacts with the outside shape, from the very simplest to the most complex. So that excitement is always there, and I can still remember a good part of the pieces that I've done. So I guess I'm paying attention to it or something.
Pewter spinning is a craft seldom seen. Fred Danforth practices his craft in Middlebury.
What I do when I'm working on the lathe is called metal spinning, and that is a process which is distinct from metal turning because I'm forming metal versus removing material from a shape to create my shape. The process is a very fluid process. It's sort of surprising that a metal can move in this way. It's a combination of throwing a pot and blowing glass, I guess. When I'm working with my hands, it is like a meditation. It's like a dance. The thrill for me comes when I find myself doing things almost without thinking about it, because I'm creating using skills that I've acquired over the years, and it's very personal and it's very wonderful, and I really enjoy it when someone else appreciates the shape when it's done. The vase that I just formed was the shape of that. The final shape of that vase is not determined by the form of the what I call the chuck, which is the mandrel that I'm spinning the metal over. It's spun on air for the final step, and that shape is determined simply by the amount of pressure and a whole series of focus and attention that I bring to that moment when it's being completed.
The Shelburne Craft School is the home of resident potters, weavers, and woodworkers. The residents open their studios for teaching their craft to people of all ages and all abilities.
Okay, now you want support with your elbows on your legs and your hands on the side of the clay. Feel for the middle and gently plunge in. Great. One thing that I really enjoy about teaching is watching that beginner student get so excited about their first piece. It could be just the scrunchiest little lump, but they love it, and that's so important, And I remember when I first started taking pottery classes, how I just dreamt about clay and thought about clay all the time and just couldn't wait to be in the studio. And I think sometimes when I get bogged down with trying to make ends meet by selling crafts, which is hard, their enthusiasm really keeps me going and reminds me of that.
The raku process is a Japanese firing technique of the 16th century. Pieces are heated up in a small kiln to approximately 1800 degrees and then pulled out of the kiln while they're red hot and quickly cooled in some kind of organic combustible material. And the heat, or the heat from the pot, will actually ignite the combustible, and that causes a chemical reaction which reacts with the glaze that is on the piece. This happens very fast, and it's quite a spontaneous firing process. I enjoy it because you really get to participate in this part of the ceramic process. The Year of American Craft is to celebrate craft, to draw attention to people that work with their hands and that are producing craft objects and items that enrich our lives or can enrich our lives on a day-to-day basis. The Open Studio Weekend is really a way to hopefully get people to visit Vermont, and while they're visiting Vermont, to visit craftspeople who are a great part of the Vermont experience, so to speak. There are many craftspeople who are living in Vermont because of the lifestyle of Vermont and because it's just a beautiful place to live.
We hope you will visit Vermont's Open Studios this Memorial Day weekend, May the 29th and 30th. This is Jamie Cope for the Department of Travel and Tourism.